Much. Dr. Jim Garrow with us on the show today. Dr. Garrow, welcome. Thank you for joining us again today. It's going to be a big show today. Lots of ground to cover.
Yeah, well, tons of ground to cover. And by the way, I was laughing so hard my Obama mask slipped off.
Oh, your Obama mask slipped off? Oh, that's funny.
Well, in your introduction to the program, it talks about somebody being fired for wearing an Obama mask.
Yes, yeah. Well, and the thing is, I mean, I guess some people don't have a sense of humor anymore.
Yeah.
But the sense of proportion is what got me. A guy got banned for life for wearing a Barack Obama mask. And I think back.
Yeah, that was video.
Do you remember in Monday Night Football they used to show, everybody in the crowd would be wearing a Ronald Reagan mask in the 80s. It was
yes.
it was considered normal. You were odd if you didn't wear a Ronald Reagan mask. But the Obamas can't take a joke, I guess.
Oh, they can't.
Well, Dr. Garrow, there's so much going on in the news, and for those of you that aren't familiar with Dr. Jim Garrow, he is the founder of the Bethune Institute, one of the most respected education institutions, and they have hundreds of schools in China, and they are considered elite schools, and I don't mean that in a snobby way, but in the very best of ways. And and as a matter of fact, so elite that there are certain visitors to China that you could afford to say, nah, no thank you.
Yeah.
Would you
I've been getting a lot of calls about that, by the way. You may as well know the mainstream media have been phoning saying, is this true? And, of course, I deny it. I say, no, it can't be true.
Well,
who would dare do that to Michelle?
What do you make of? First of all, my wife wants to ask you if you would just please tell us what you really think of Michelle Obama, because apparently you're having trouble expressing yourself.
Yeah, I have trouble when I put pen to paper. My cell phone and a pen make me the ruler of the universe. Or is that Barry? Sorry, Bathhouse Barry.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's easy to get carried away. Anybody with a pen and a phone is now, Superman.
Yeah. And by the way, thank you for not using a Superman theme in introducing me. I like the secret agent man thing. That was pretty good, because I don't wear tights.
Well, thank you for putting that image in my mind. Thanks, Jim. Anyway, we are, by the way, in solidarity with Dr. Garrow, for those of you that don't know, I decided that I am not going to trim my beard until he trims his beard.
Oh, you've seen the pictures, have you?
Oh, yeah. And my wife is saying, you're not going to do that, are you? And I'm like, well, I'm not planning on it. I'm not planning on going gray that fast. But
yeah. It's been 2 years since my wife kissed me.
Well, there you go.
I mean, there are these for this stuff,
So the let's talk about. I mean, the news stories are all now reporting that the Malaysian airliner definitely crashed in the southern Indian Ocean. There are reports of debris being spotted from satellites, but nobody on the ground, or rather on the sea, can find any significant floating debris at all. What really is going on with this Malaysian jetliner from the beginning? Can you give us an idea?
Well, the reports I've had are very similar to reports that General Tom McInerney has heard, and General Paul Vallely. We've heard a bunch of. We've gotten reports from people with significant, I believe, significant sources of information, if not direct, then at least through the intelligence communities around the world. The reports that I've heard personally are that the jet contained not only the personnel, the 20 personnel who worked for the software company, but also hardware and software on their laptops, but hardware that they'd been working on, and that they had attempted. What they were doing was stealing the hardware. They've been working in a joint venture with America, and they just decided to take it because whatever they were able to accomplish was such a leading edge move forward that China wanted it, and these guys took off with it. and of course they had to be intercepted. And the jet was sent over to Diego Garcia, where the 20 malefactors were taken off, and the actual equipment was taken off the jet as well. It was re-provisioned for those people who were on board, and I mean, even the toilets were emptied. These are the kinds of details that we got. So then they were set back on their course to Pakistan. Tom McInerney told me that it had landed in Pakistan. That was verified by someone else that I know on the ground. And yeah, so it made it there. Now, from there, I'm not sure what happened. If it ends up in the ocean, or it turns out that it's been crashed into the ocean, and I'm going to tell you, it's deliberate, because all along this route, this circuitous route, there have been intentionalities observed here, whereby, you know, stolen equipment was not allowed to be stolen. These people were interrogated, and as you know, Diego Garcia is a CIA operations center, as well as being a Navy base for America, of course, rented from the British, who have a small presence on the island as well. Or it's not really an island, it's an atoll. So that's basically what I know.
Wow. And the, of course, the misinformation that we have been given, I mean, I mean, obviously they're following a narrative. And, you know, I guess the thing that really bothers me about this entire fiasco is the fact that no one in the media is challenging the information coming from the Prime Minister of Malaysia or anybody else regarding the disposition of the aircraft, regarding the entire story, because the story that they've been reading off of from day one is just so completely unbelievable. They have no credibility in my mind, because it, you know, when you have that kind of technology flying on an aircraft and it disappears, the odds of that being coincidence are very, very low.
No, true, and you know, one of the points that Tom made was that the pings that Rolls-Royce were receiving on their engines were last located in Pakistan. So, I mean, let's face it, you've got evidence to suggest that not only did the aircraft divert to Diego Garcia, and we have personnel who've attested to that, but that it did end up in Pakistan. Now, were the 20 taken off and kept in Diego Garcia for interrogation, further interrogation? I would suggest yes, because the technologies that we're hearing we're on board are, it's mind-boggling what they've been able to do. And knowing that, you can see why, in terms of national security, this was a high priority to get this back. The fact that if the gentlemen were acting as operatives in stealing for China, then this is a serious breach between the two nations of trust, especially when it was a joint venture to be shared, of course, with one another, and for them to make off with the actual goods, the equipment itself, that's pretty bad, especially given the timing. I mean, look at Michelle Obama's going over to look at sending your kiddies to school in China, of course, at the expense of every citizen on American soil who are paying for this junket. But here it is. What a thing to do. It's a slap in the face, Mr. Obama, that they would even attempt to do this while his wife was actually in China.
Yeah, it's a obviously, I mean, the dynamics of the relationship with China, and also we're starting to see. I mean, obviously, we're going to talk about Vladimir Putin and Ukraine and John Kerry, the buffoon. This entire soap opera, we'll talk about this as the show wears on, but there is so very much beneath the surface going on right now, diplomatically as well as economically, And the Malaysian jetliner story has served as a very convenient distraction for the world elite and for the Obama administration to move ahead with their plans to ultimately submarine the American economy.
Yes, yeah, it's all part and parcel with what's going on. Absolutely.
Can we talk a little about the plans that are underway to destroy the dollar? Because this is something that every American needs to be aware of. Anybody that has significant cash holdings in the banks. We are looking at a very volatile situation. And there was even reports this week, which appear to be unfounded, but there were reports that there was rumors of a run on a few of the smaller banks in a certain county in China. And any time that you hear those rumblings, it really gives you an idea of how shaky things are, because so many citizens then quickly race to the banks to try and get their money out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's what a run is, isn't it? You try and get your money out before the bank no longer has money. And of course, unless you take that money and convert it into something, an asset, a tangible asset like gold or whatever it might be that you could hold on to. Frankly, I would advise people, if you're not going to buy gold, buy arms and armament. Buy guns and ammo, because down the road they are going to be so valuable, because Obama, of course, he's hell-bent on disarming the population, and of course that's what every dictator in the past has done. Take away the ability of the populace to rise up and protest this new administration. So we have been guaranteed by right that we have the right to redress of grievances. We have the right to appeal for a solution to grievances that we bring to our government. Well, this government does not want to solve grievances. They want to make demands. They've lost the notion that they are the servants of the people, and they believe, Mr. Obama at least believes, that he is the master of us all. And his moves regarding the Constitution and the rule of law, just running roughshod over them, are certainly witness to the attitude, the arrogance. So we're in rough shape right now. We're in great big gobs of doo-doo, as some people would say.
Oh wow, my wife I know is smiling right now. That's funny, Dr. Garrow. The fact that we're talking about the Malaysian jetliner and all these other things going on, the technology that was on board that jetliner, as I understand it, there are a lot of different theories on what they were actually working on, these computer geniuses and their crates of hardware on the plane. And one of the theories that I've heard is that it was some kind of cloaking device that they were working on.
And where did you hear that, by the way?
Well, I heard that from an old gray-bearded man. But the thing about it is, you think about how this plane fell off radar. And yes, I know all about the electronics on the plane, and if somebody knows what they're doing, they can easily make the plane disappear by turning off the transponder and several other things. But the interesting thing about this jetliner is the Rolls-Royce engines on the 777 have their own communication devices with Rolls-Royce. They want to know, this is what they call proactive technology, where engines will tell you if they are beginning to have problems, and they will continually transmit data, telemetry data about the status of the engine back to Rolls-Royce, so that Rolls-Royce can provide the very best in service and maintenance of those engines. So we know from the information that they've shared that those engines continued to run for at least 7 hours after the plane fell off radar. That much we know. But if they're flying underneath the radar, then they could have gone in any direction. And the eyewitness accounts from different people the claims that, oh, it went that way or it went that way, or that somebody thought they saw it, off of Perth, Australia, or wherever. I mean, the misinformation, the massive amount of press coverage that this got, where people actually didn't know anything, they were just there to talk in circles. I mean, this event, one of the most bizarre news stories I think we've ever seen.
Mm-hmm. No, it is, and it has many twists and turns. Of course, every time you turn around, someone is saying something different about it. But let's go back to the actual the aircraft itself, the Rolls-Royce Trent. And you know that Rolls-Royce always names its engines after rivers, by the way. Were you aware of that?
I was not aware of that.
They do, and it's because rivers just continue to flow. And they believe that that's the best way to describe the Rolls-Royce engines, that they are that reliable, that they will, like a river, always flow. So the Trent 800s that they have the two of them on, they're massive, massive engines. And by the way, there is a choice that an airline can choose from, Pratt & Whitney PW4000s or the Trent 800, the Rolls-Royce. And, of course, many of the internationals choose the Rolls-Royce, which is a British product. The Pratt & Whitney is American. But this particular one has the Rolls-Royce. So they are monitored for performance as to how well they are performing. Have they met the limits that they are designed to meet? And, of course, that ensures safety. It ensures, of course, as well, in terms of performance and the use of its fuel, that you're getting the maximum bang for your buck. And that's what these people want. That's what airlines want, because their major expense, of course, apart from the actual physical presence of the aircraft itself, is the fuel that's used in every journey. So if they can maximize fuel efficiency, they're making more money. And otherwise they go out of business. So here you have one of the finest aircraft that's been flying since 1994. That's when the first flight of the thing took place, and then 95 went into service with the United Airlines. They were the very first people to take the risk. And if you go back in history, think about the shaky days that Boeing went through back in that era. 94, 95, they were almost out of business. And so United Airlines, by making the purchase of the aircraft itself, kept these guys in business. So there's a long story here about, the tie-in with America of this jet itself. But now, these gentlemen from China, working together, of course, up until that point in time when they decided to take off, they were working on, and you're right, it is a stealth cloaking style of technology. Now, the equipment on board is not sufficient to actually be used to cloak an aircraft. They have the very first prototype of this design, which is meant to, and you know the difference between a solid and a gas. It has to do with the molecules and the space between the molecules. So something that's solid has the molecules very closely together. What they were experimenting with, and what ended up being a huge breakthrough, was that they were able to force light to go through a solid by finding the spaces between the molecules and continuing on from one side of the object all the way through the object, even making diversions in its path. Now, believe it or not, that is something, to take light and be able to divert the light within these molecules and send it all the way through. So this is a new breakthrough. And by the way, this has never been described on radio yet. I'm giving you the very first description right now of what technology is. Well, so I've gotten it from a source right there at the development of this whole leading-edge technology. And, of course, I'm waiting for, right-wing watch will be going nuts right now, and all these other crazy, saying, hey, man, that J.J. McCartney, is he ever, out to lunch for having a guy like Garrow on there? Well,
oh, boy.
But I want you to know, this is where our technology is. We're that far ahead of everything. The computers that we have today and the thinking, the divergent out-of-the-box thinking that people have been bringing to bear on problems that we have, and looking for new solutions is just amazing. To me, this is absolute brilliance, right on the leading edge of what's going on in the world. So that's what we're seeing. Now, where this goes, of course, is to the whole notion of cloaking a spacecraft, you know, as you see in Star Wars or Star Trek or some of these programs. I think it's the Klingons, weren't they the ones you always saw, these funny warbirds? Or it's that kind of thing, and that's exactly what we're looking at.
You know, there you have it, folks. The very first complete description from Dr. Garrow here. In the you know, as far as we know, the first explanation in America or around the world of what kind of technology we're talking about. And I know that there's so much more. It's more complex than most of us can even comprehend, that don't have the mind of these you know, these brilliant engineers that have actually learned how to manipulate things at such a level that they can redirect light itself and somehow control it. It's certainly fascinating technology, and you know, right from Dr. Garrow today here on the show, I can't begin to describe how amazed I am. I'm just, you know, just at the thought that this information's coming to light just now. And folks, you heard it here first. You'll be able to tell your grandchildren that you were listening to Jim Garrow on the J.J. McCartney Show, and he told us this technology exists, and now we know. I mean, it's fantastic.
Keep in mind, J.J., that the only reason this is happening is because you introduced me with secret agent man.
Well, I know that a lot of people out there are skeptical of this kind of technology, but then again, I mean, there was a time when talking about splitting the atom seemed far-fetched. You know, it's amazing how far the intelligence level has come. I mean, just the scientific advances that have been made in the last, well, in our lifetimes, you know, it's almost hard to believe for people that you know, in the early 1900s were still reliant on the horse and buggy, or the highfalutin type that had the you know, had the Model A or whatever. The fact that our technology has come so far so fast is you know, the amounts of space you need to store all of the information that mankind has today versus the year I was born. It really it's nothing short of amazing what they're doing today with this technology, and I am very interested in finding out more about how they were able to do this and what kind of equipment. I mean, obviously, most of this is terribly classified, and I imagine that this is definitely the kind of technology that nations would be willing to kill to get their hands on, and we certainly can't ignore that possibility when we're talking about this Malaysian jet.
Well, I think you've hit it right on the mark. I think we're looking at something that is so. This is a game changer. This technology is such a game changer that these governments, one of them anyway, is not hesitating to actually kill an entire jet load of innocent people in order to secure it and make sure that it doesn't get outside of their hands. So in spite of the effort by the Chinese to steal it totally, and the physical aspect of it, as well as, you know, of course, the software. But this, I think, is what's happened. And, of course, the fact that it ended up in Pakistan, and, you know, I think we have enough sources that we're very satisfied in knowing that that is where it went. What happened to it after that, as the cover-up, because that's what I'm going to call it, whatever happened beyond Pakistan is part of this cover-up, whether it was, you know, sent back over a part of the flight path and then crashed into the ocean. You know, absolutely it makes sense. But the capture of what could have been taken away by these Chinese people on board who'd been working on this stealth technology. This was a major thing, and I'm not sure. Once again, we've had a lot of things happen recently under the watch care of Obama that is quite an embarrassment. Many things happening, and part of it is the fact that the man is an amateur. Has not surrounded himself with people who have the capacities of previous generations of cabinet. These people bring business experience, for example, or military experience that has been leading edge. And what has happened in this administration is that he's replaced leading edge people whose loyalty to America is unquestioned, with people whose loyalties to America are questionable, and may even be divided, if not even treasonous, into the cabinet. And so he's getting advice. He's being maneuvered in directions that have nothing to do with the best interest of America as a whole. So I see this as an overall failure of the administration. The fact that this was allowed to take place, the fact that this major technology was allowed to fly away on a Malaysian jet, that's something else. And the fact that it had to be intercepted in some way or another and taken over to that CIA operations center on Diego Garcia, that is major. We've never had this happen in the history of jets flying, commercial jets in the world. This is the first. So we've got a lot of firsts happening, and all of it, I believe, a direct reflection on the weakness of the Obama administration.
Well, we're certainly going to talk about that, the weakness of the Obama administration. I got to take a break right now, but we will talk about the weakness of the Obama administration and what it has done to the relationships that we have with our allies and our adversaries all around the world. We'll do that when we come back. This is the J.J. McCartney Show. Our guest today is Dr. Jim Garrow. And if you have a question for the doctor, you can call 1-888-997-2141. Again, the toll-free number is 888-997-2141. This J.J. McCartney Show. Doctor, we talk about the Obama administration and the weakness of the Obama administration where foreign policy is concerned, and nothing could illustrate it more than John Kerry. It's just inexplicable. There's no logical explanation for this foreign policy. It is so disjointed and completely disorganized, and you could just tell that these people, their worldview is so far away from reality that it is becoming a serious risk to our national security.
Well, we don't live in la-la land. We live in the world of reality, and that's the sad part here. You see, what you're observing are people who really believe that the stuff they learned in university, about the collective soul, as it were, that they're all part of the collective of the human race, and that the intentions of the soul and spirit of people are really good. That was the kind of garbage that I was taught, and I went, early degrees were in Toronto, and frankly, my goodness, the claptrap we were handed, the revolutionary Marxist garbage that we were given. It was a worldview that was like, wow, totally separate from reality. The rest of the world went around, and every day and around the sun, and in the meantime, on campuses, these people lived in an inverted universe, something totally different than what the real world is and was. And that's the world of people like Obama and people like Kerry. They come from this weird fairy tale understanding of the reality of the universe. And what is amazing to me is we have had some wonderful people as secretaries of state. We've had really brilliant people who knew how to look someone, an enemy, in the eye and give them the news that we will nuke you if you head down this road. and understand that that's the kind of talk that's needed with an enemy that is determined to wipe you out. In the meantime, we've got these guys who think that by bargaining and hoping that the good nature of someone else will move to the fore always is somehow a strength. It's amazing to me. It's also total balderdash and foolishness. But that's what we're living with right now. And I'm glad you brought Kerry up, because of all the people who has shown himself not to be a patriot, you have a man who was a traitor back, in the war years of Vietnam. There was no one. Oh, I'm sorry. There was one other person who was worse, and that would be, what was her name? Jane Fonda.
Yes, Jane. The thing about John Kerry, when you say traitor, I mean, it could not be more true. He betrayed every one of his comrades in Vietnam. He betrayed every man that fought, bled, and died in Vietnam, and he betrayed the nation. And he did so with impunity. I mean, he was proud of what he did, and so many people on the left they share this Pollyanna worldview, where if we'll just be nice to the terrorists, they'll be nice to us. That's not how it works in the real world. And what you talk about, this claptrap that they learned in school. And the idea that everybody's good and everything. I mean, when you look at World War II, and you look at how many lives were lost on our side, and of course on the enemy side as well. The thing about World War II, the reason that we won World War II was because of the moral strength and resolve of the American people. That's how we won World War II. And one other thing that the soldiers in World War II had that they don't have today, Dr. Garrow, and it's this. They had permission to fight to win.
Yes.
Today,
Amen.
The rules of engagement put in place by Barack Hussein Obama have put our soldiers at risk everywhere they go. They're not allowed to have a round chambered in their weapon. How insane is this? War, if you don't understand war, the nature of war, if you haven't been a student of history when it comes to warfare, if you don't understand the mentality of the people you are fighting, and obviously the Obama administration does not understand the mentality of the enemies of America, they continue to use these tired, worn-out, ineffective, nonsensical student council foreign policy tactics, and they are failing miserably. Meanwhile, Vladimir Putin had, danced his way into Crimea. And, he already had troops on the ground there. It was no big surprise that when trouble began to brew, we knew that it would happen after the Olympics. We knew this. Any thinking person looking at that situation knew it was going to happen after the Olympics, all the goodwill for the Olympics, and then boom. But, Vladimir Putin, he's not going to stop with Crimea. I mean, he is already talking about restoring some borders and Russia is basically getting back into the empire building mode. And nobody, you heard Barack Obama yesterday talking about how, if they try to do that to any NATO nations, well, then we're gonna have a problem. And
what, they're going to draw a red line in the sand?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. He was going to say, if you think we're not serious about our red line, you better check with Assad. Yeah, that's right.
Let's go back in history just a little bit. Go right back to Winston Churchill. Winston Churchill, who was derided all over the place when he said, "I have read the manifesto of this man. I have read Adolf Hitler's Mein Kampf. I know what he wants," and he warned Europe. He told Europe where this was going to go, and he was poo-pooed. He was held as an idiot, as someone insane, as somebody who was mentally ill, and I mean, he went through a huge depression period because of the way he was treated. But he was right on. His analysis was right on because he read the book. Okay, what do we know about Putin? Putin has always desired, since his days in the KGB, and he's written about it himself, he's desired to see the USSR reestablished, that the Russian domination of the communist world would rise again. And he's never changed this. And these moves that he's making now are fully in line with his desire to see the rebuilding, the resurgence of just what you said, the communist dream. And he is looking at the weakness of Barack Obama, knowing full well, now's the chance. Now I can move. Now I can do it. And he's right. He's absolutely right. Instead of having a Winston Churchill today, we've had a little Winston Churchill with a little different sexual bias. We've had a Sarah Palin who actually said, thus and so, these things we need to watch out for. And now we're seeing that she was right.
Yeah, there's no question about it. And the people that ridiculed Sarah Palin when she talked about the death panels and everything else she could see going on, the thing about it is, none of those people. I didn't see what's her name from Tina Fey. I didn't see Tina Fey admitting that she was wrong and that Sarah Palin was right. You didn't see any of the other ones on Saturday Night Live, you know, the Amy Poehlers, the Seth Meyers, everybody else that was piling on, making fun of her, Bill Maher, all of the witches on The View. None of them came back and said, ooh, I guess Sarah Palin was right. We were wrong. I mean, they do not have that kind of reflection. It's not part of the liberal mind. They do not contemplate or actually, take a critical look at themselves. And anything that diverts them from their esoteric kind of bizarre narcissistic worldview is immediately dismissed as folly. And we see that's a major flaw, too, of the liberal mind. The simple fact that they are unable to intellectually process logic and intelligent thought from the right. Because their hatred...
So bought into,
their hatred...
They're so bought into their own ideological view, they can't see the forest for the trees. Because all they see is whatever it is that they're defining. Let's go back to John Kerry just for a second, if I might. You keep in mind that what John Kerry did and what Jane Fonda did back in that day when they were protesting the Vietnam War, they managed to suck the blood out of the effort, the strength out of the effort to win a war. So we lost focus. Now we had to deal with this uprising of dissent in the homeland, and we lost the desire then to win a war. And if you go into a war, you go in it to win. And so John Kerry was the one who helped, for the most part. He's one of the key players in sucking that will away from the American people and disabling our ability to go ahead and win a war that needed to be won. And what are we doing today? Now we're playing at war. We're not in there to win because our drive to win has been stolen from us by people like this, people like a John Kerry, a Jane Fonda, and who represents that way of thinking today? The president himself.
Yes.
Obama himself represents that way of thinking.
And it is it's also reflected in what he is doing to our fighting forces. The purges that are taking place in the military today, the permissiveness that has been endorsed by the president in allowing openly gay people to serve in the military, completely unaware and completely refusing to understand the logistical reasons that it must not be so. This is going to turn into a cream puff military by the time Barack Obama is through. And intelligent fighting men and women are going to get out. because they don't want any part of what Barack Obama is trying to build with the military today.
And how dare you stand up and say to Barack Obama, and excuse me, Joe Wilson, you lie. How dare you stand up and in his face tell him the truth about what he's doing? If you do that, he will do everything in his power to crush you. He will do everything in his power to make your life miserable. Of course, we're seeing that all across the United States, where people who have stood up are now being punished for the audacity they've had to stand up against the despot who rules from the Oval Office. And here's the thing again. Back in, January 20th of 2013, I was phoned by a military man asking me if I would help to get the word out about something no one had ever heard of, a litmus test being asked of the leadership in the military. And the litmus test was simply this: if you were ordered, in spite of the Constitution saying that you can't do this, to fire on American civilians who would not give up their firearms when asked for in confiscation, those very arms, which they have the right to, will you do it? If the wrong answer was given, if the answer was constitutionally correct, which was no, I will not do it, instead of being yes, I will do it in obeyance to you, Mr. Obama, and in subjugation to you and loyalty to you rather than the Constitution, Mr. Obama, then those people, of course, were allowed to stay. But here's the point. We got that word out, and we were poo-pooed all across America until people started to see that there was, in fact, a purge taking place. And then, of course, Alex Jones, he was one of the first people. I think 2 days afterwards, he had me on his program because he just had to get this out there, because for him, the ring of truth was there. And I think he had people verifying it as well. And so we were on 700 broadcasts after that. But the fact of the matter was, America needed to know the truth, and someone had to bring it forward. So here we are with a man whose dishonesty is replete. We see it everywhere. We see him lying full, bold-faced, right in front of us, telling us truths that we know to be untruth.
Yep.
And there is no honor in this man. But there is a demand on the part of this man for us to obey him or pay a price.
Yeah, it is actually, when you talk about a megalomaniac, you are seeing it unfold before you on a daily basis. Barack Obama's intolerance for dissent is something that we've really never seen before in an American president, and certainly we're seeing it on a daily basis today. Dr. Jim Garrow is our guest on the J.J. McCartney Show. I need to take another break. When we come back, I'm going to pose a question that Angel has asked to Dr. Garrow, having to do with Muslims being flown into the country, and why that may not sound sensational at the outset, but when we finish asking the question, you might start to understand why it's a problem. With Dr. Jim Garrow, our guest on the J.J. McCartney Show, we will be J.J. McCartney Show on this Thursday, the 27th day of March, 2014. Dr. Jim Garrow, our guest, and if you have a question for Dr. Garrow, you can call toll-free 888-997-2141. That's 888-997-2141, and talk to Dr. Jim Garrow on the show today. Dr. Garrow, the question from Angel goes like this: who is flying all the Muslims into our country, and where are they now? Some of our military was ordered to do it, apparently. And, moreover, these Muslims that are being flown into the country are being hired as military chaplains. Have you heard anything about this?
I can't speak to anything to do with how the people are getting into the country. I can speak, though, to the fact that Muslims are coming into our country, whether through a southern border or whether they're being allowed into the country, in other words, through customs, or being allowed in the country without going through customs and circumventing the normal processes and procedures that keep us safe. They're here, and these are jihadis. Keep in mind, and I want to be clear on this, I have nothing against someone who has a religious belief system different than my own. What I have that I don't appreciate is when I'm up against somebody who says that the bottom line is that I am, they call me a name, kafir, I'm an unbeliever, and in that unbelief, they now believe that they have permission to chop my head off. In fact, it is their duty to chop my head off. Then I have a problem with that. Because what we've seen elsewhere in the world, whether it be in Britain or whether it be in Holland or wherever it might be, Indonesia, we see moves, incremental moves for domination of the entire society, turning the new society where they have moved into, because they've always moved into those societies, into repressive regimes under the Islamic boot. Their heel is on your neck just before it gets cut off. Their notion is not that we all can live in harmony together. Their notion is not what the Republic of the United States stands for, which means that, you know, from many, one, e pluribus unum, out of many, we come together as one nation. That's not what they believe. They believe that they are the nation. They themselves existent as Islamists, as servants of Allah. They believe that they are the nation that is to be dominant and supreme in the world.
All right.
They are told to go and repress everyone else.
You know, and you have to credit Glenn Beck for a couple of years back making everybody aware of a word called caliphate and what it really means to the radical wing of Muslim. And right now we're going to go to the phones, Dr. Garrow, with a phone call from area code 541. Hello, you are on the air on the J.J. McCartney Show. Who are we talking to?
Hi, this is Tom McCartney in Oregon.
Hey, Tom, how you doing today?
Oh, I just want to tell you, Doctor, that you are a godsend to everybody that likes truth and is tired of not getting the right news.
Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate that word. That's a real encouragement to me. Thank you.
My question, sir, is on the subject of Agenda 21. In my opinion, after reading the entire document, this will really be Obama's endgame. The principal brief issue that concerns me most, and I'm concerned about all of it, but the fact that it's already law, and the intent is to confiscate all private property and to move citizens to urban areas is about as bad as it gets. And my question to you, sir, is what, if anything, can we do about it aside from attendance on May 16th in D.C.?
Well, if you're going to be there on May 16th for Operation American Spring in Washington, D.C., then, sir, make sure that you and I get a chance to chat and shake hands, because I would find it an honor to have that opportunity.
Well, thank you. I'm gonna try and save up my disability money, and I'm going to try and actually be there.
Well, I'll be there, sir, for sure. Although I have to duck out early in the evening for a flight back to Detroit, because I'm speaking the next day at a CPAC convention. But yeah, you bring up excellent points. JJ, did you want to say something right there? I know there's something that this gentleman...
Well, let me let you gentlemen address that issue, and I'm going to get off the line.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you so much, Thomas, for the phone call. And, folks, that's how it's done. Toll-free 888-997-2141. Thomas from Oregon, thank you for calling. Yeah, we talk about Agenda 21 and all of the different the stipulations and the things that it is devoted to are all anti-American. There's no question about it. It is truly an attempt by the world elites to seize control not only of our country but of every country as they try to bring everybody under one umbrella, one world government. That is exactly what Agenda 21 is about. It is also about the systematic liquidation of 90% of the human population on the planet. Now, some people are going to doubt that. Some people are going to say, you're crazy. But, my friends, we have to remember one thing. There is an elite out there that is godless. They do not have a conscience. They believe that they can make themselves like gods on this planet. And the 10% that gets to hang around, most of those people will be servants of the elite. Now, if you think that that's not the case, then you need to do what Thomas did, is read all about Agenda 21. Look how it pertains to education. Look what they're doing to the kids, the indoctrination. It begins every year a little bit younger. The indoctrination of our children into this collective thinking. And this notion that individuality is really not that big a deal. They will test our kids when they are young, and they will determine what they will be when they grow up, and that is the path they will put the children on, and you don't waver from their path. Common Core is a part of it. There's also a huge part of Agenda 21 has to do with controlling water rights, and that, again, the property rights that Tom was talking about, pertaining to your right, my right, to do with our property as we see fit. Now, we've heard stories of the man in Wyoming. He and his wife have an 8-acre farm. He built a little stock pond on the farm, and the EPA is trying to fine this man $75,000 a day because he has a little pond on his little farm. And this is not about protecting the environment. This is about seizing people's property and taking away their right to do what they wish with their property. It is insidious, and it has been, Agenda 21 has been promoted by politicians on both sides of the aisle. I mean, that's the crime of this, Dr. Garrow, is that our politicians are ignoring their oath, and they are allowing themselves to be aligned with the elite because they want a seat at that table.
Exactly, and shame on them for falling into this trap. The collectivist, Marxist, communist mindset that says that together we own things, together we have things in common, and I don't mean what it really means is that you have no individual right to own property, and that's part of what Agenda 21 says very clearly. You don't have that individual right. That the collective, the government representing the collective good of the people, will take that property in trust, because, of course, you can't be trusted. Of course, we've seen what the government does when it controls anything. It becomes an absolute boondoggle. It becomes a place where people are given favor who don't deserve favor, but because of political ideology and connections and the fact that you're part of an elite, you get the goodies. And this is what's the worst thing of the whole United Nations notion. They are really thieves. That's exactly what they are. They are thieves. They will take from you. They'll talk a good line about being trustworthy, and that they will do this in trust for other people or for the great collective good. But what they're doing is taking from those people who own something. They've bought it. They have the right to it because they're titled. They're deeded, which they either inherited or they purchased. Out of good work and through the use of their own treasure. But we have a new notion, a communistic notion, that says that America, free enterprise America, property right America, with the ability to do whatever it is that you believe in good conscience and within law that God has enabled you to do using the talents that you have, is to be replaced by the state. And so it is statism that will be used to bludgeon freedom and to take away your rights, all of your rights in the end, because they believe that rights come from the state, not from God. And keep in mind, America was founded by people who believed in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the one who gave us our rights. It is from him that we have identity and we have right. The nation itself was founded by men who recognized it, wrote a Declaration of Independence to support the notion, and then wrote a Constitution that put in print a method through which the God of the Bible would be honored, but also his principles would be honored in a state that would represent him in what they felt was the best way to have government serving God and serving the people. Always in mind that government is the servant of the people, not the ruler of the people.
Yeah, it's you know, we certainly have to keep in mind, folks, that you know, the enemies of freedom are all around in the government. I mean, the appointments that get made by presidents, especially this president. I mean, the layers of bureaucrats that are in place, not to look out for you and me, but to try and politicize every cabinet department, every single agency, use them for political purposes. There's no denying it at the IRS. We all know what happened at the IRS, and the American people, by the way, should be mad enough that we start demanding. And I believe that May 16th we'll have a chance to really make our voices heard. We need to start demanding the abolishment of the IRS and the adoption of some sort of flat tax or even a national sales tax of some sort, for which there are no exemptions and no loopholes. You know, it's a simple thing, really. The IRS has become a political weapon. And we,
as the EPA has as well.
Exactly.
So we redress. We seek that redress that you're talking about, the grievance, and the grievance, of course, has become branches of our own government that are enslaving us.
Yes. Yes, and that just cannot go on. Need to take another break, Dr. Garrow. We have more to come, and I want to invite more folks to call in on the toll-free number. It's 888-997-2141. The J.J. McCartney Show with our guest today, Dr. Jim Garrow, and we'll be back with more in just a moment.
I remember the winter of '72. I was just a boy then, but I was wide awake. I could feel the cold, 35 below. The wind gusting made it feel like it was nigh on 70 below. We walked to school back then. I remember hearing the snow squeak and crunch under my boots, while the rest of me was bundled up in scarves and mittens and a coat with a hood and a wool hat. Those Alaskan winters were mighty powerful. And I remember shoveling over 3 feet of snow that New Year's Day. Now that it's the 21st century and all, I wonder what the winter's going to look like up yonder in the last frontier. Them climate change nudie goofers are saying that the polar bears are going to die off if we don't change our light bulbs. Well, heaven knows I love polar bears. But why do I have to change out my light bulbs? Of course, if we all switch back to oil lanterns powered by whale fat, we could probably save a whole bunch of species. Start with the sea lions and other critters that get ate up every year by those pesky killer whales. And here's another great idea. Let's relocate all the wolf population from Alaska to Washington, D.C. We could set them loose in the capital and eliminate the entire population of skunks, weasels, jackasses, and the peskiest varmint of all, bureaucrats. You might have thought an old conservative like me would be against all these environmentalists. But hey, I like the idea of saving the wolf population and eliminating the worst predators on the planet, corrupt politicians. Just one problem. If them wolves catch up with Nancy Pelosi, they may shy away. I hear wolves don't like the taste of plastic and collagen. But maybe if they get hungry enough, they may change their mind. Well, this is the old sourdough saying thanks for listening. And we'll have more of the J.J. McCartney Show coming up as soon as I can snare me a juicy jackrabbit.
Are you tired of social networks that shop your data around all kinds of shady online scam operators, having your own posts removed or of getting blocked from adding friends for no good reason? Tired of seeing progressive liberals and radical leftists receiving preferential treatment on Facebook and Twitter? There is a better way. Conservatives, patriots, and those who believe in common sense now have a place where they can be among friends who share their values and their understanding of what this country needs. It's called PatriotFB.com, 24-hour radio network that brings you the best and brightest in conservative, common-sense, patriotic programs and people who believe in the Constitution, who are committed Second Amendment patriots. Hear all the shows anytime you like, from Michael Evans, America's Voice Now, to Jeff Norton's The Midnight Patriot, to me, The J.J. McCartney Show. It's all free. Sign up now at www.patriotfb.com. Oh, and one more thing. You're welcome. This is The J.J. McCartney Show.
What is freedom of speech?
It's my mouth,
my tongue,
and my 32 teeth,
my thighs,
my mind,
my rights to preach,
to rap, to sing, and even to teach.
No matter the genre, it's still
my freedom of speech. Congress will not choose my religion.
Freedom of press, assembly, and petition.
The laws do protect us.
This is true.
To agree to disagree is sometimes better to do.
Use your mouth,
your tongue,
Your 32 teeth,
your thoughts,
your mind,
your right to preach. No matter the genre, it's
our freedom of speech. This message is brought to you by the NAB Education Foundation, the Broadcast Education Association, Robert R. McCormick Foundation, and this station.
We are back on the J.J. McCartney Show with Dr. Jim Garrow.
There's a man who leads a life of danger.
Dr. Garrow, I want to get into the meat and potatoes of Vladimir Putin and the Ukraine and talk a little bit about the complete El Foldo that the Obama administration has pulled as far as Ukraine is concerned. I mean, that we've already written them off, and Vladimir Putin is licking his chops, I'm sure, looking at what he's going to do next. What can America expect under this administration as far as Vladimir Putin is concerned?
Well, it's the sad part here is that what we've been watching and listening to is kabuki theater. This is highly orchestrated. It has been determined ahead of time. We were warned when, thank goodness, the cameras were on, the microphone was still on, and Mr. Obama was caught saying to the Prime Minister of Russia that with the next election he'll have more flexibility, and to let Vladimir know that would be the case. And of course that word was with a nice tap on his knee. I noticed he did that, which is pretty familiar, by the way, to do the President of the United States, lean over, tap him on the knee and say, I'll convey that message to Vladimir. And of course the message was about the flexibility that Mr. Obama would believe that he had with respect to working out whatever agreements that Putin and he had been talking about. And of course now we're starting to see, as America is moved, nudge, pushed in the direction of being less than able to defend itself, less than able to support the freedoms around the world that we have been noted for the last few decades. We were known as being ready and able to move in to help democracy as it flowered, or to continue its flourishing in other areas of the world, and to beat back communism. So where are we today? We're now at a position where, as many of the generals that I've spoken with, and admirals as well, who have said to me, we're in peril. We are now seeing the best that we've had. For example, we have missile strike capability. We have defensive missiles that are now going to be stripped away from us. Programs which have protected us over the long haul are now going to be replaced with nothing. So he is killing our defensive capability, and he has killed already our offensive capability. The other thing is
this kind of dovetails with all that. It's kind of this is like a Carter regime flashback. Go back and recall in I believe it was 1980 that somebody put a microphone in front of Amy Carter. Do you remember this? And they asked Amy Carter what was her biggest worry or concern, and she said, do you recall what she said, Dr. Garrow?
I don't remember the exact words. Go ahead. I know you're going to bring it up.
Amy Carter, like 12 or 13 years old at the time, said her biggest worry was nuclear proliferation. That's what she said. That's what. And
that's on the list of every 12-year-old.
And now, 34 years later, Barack Obama sharing with the world that his biggest fear is that somebody's going to nuke New York City. That, ladies and gentlemen, is your president.
Oh, yeah.
It's insane, and there are already voices of people of New York and of course everywhere else, which are starting to make me wonder if maybe there's a false flag on the way.
Well, Hank, let me harken back to some things. You remember that it was Obama himself who set up the movement of nuclear weapons in order to set off EMPs against the American people, which fit exactly with the questioner, Tom, who talked about Agenda 21. Keep in mind that Agenda 21 asked for a 90% reduction of the population of the world in order for the world to be sustainable for the human race to continue. Of course, that is malarkey. That's baloney. But a 90% kill on American soil would mean that of the 330 million, that's including the illegals, we would be left with 33 million. And that's just a little bit larger than the population of Canada. But that's a 90% kill. That is what the experts predict would happen if an EMP device went off and leveled basically the infrastructure, the electrical grid, and all computer systems in America, causing us, cars wouldn't work, transportation would stop, refrigeration, unless you were in a hardened environment, Faraday caged, totally protected from an EMP. Everything would be toast, and then would begin the starvation and the privation that would attack America as a whole. 90% predicted kill within 2 years of that event. That event was supposed to take place on the evening of October 7th and 8th of 2013, and it was stopped by 3 heroes of America, 2 generals and 1 admiral, and they stopped Obama from doing it. You remember this, don't you?
I do. And I also want to mention, by the way, the question about New York. I want to thank Kimberly, one of our listeners, for kind of planting the seed in my mind to ask that question. When you talk about and you know, it's been a while since we actually talked about what happened in the months leading up to the planned October attack, and it's simply this: they were counting on the sun having a fairly significant coronal mass ejection and you know, a really huge solar storm, creating an environment where any kind of a nuclear device set off in the atmosphere would be amplified by the excitation of the ionosphere and the added energy being dispersed from the solar flares. The odd thing is that instead of the poles switching like they were supposed to on the sun, the North Pole moved, but the South Pole stayed where it was. And because that happened, there was not this large coronal mass ejection, which would have been an event that could have been exploited by somebody that was determined to create one of these, you know, overwhelmingly destructive electromagnetic pulses. And as you said, I mean, anybody that has researched the moving of these nuclear weapons and the triggers for the weapons and the collars for the weapons from Dyess Air Force Base in Texas being transported to the Charleston, South Carolina area. Anybody that does some research on this will find that it is factually correct. This is what happened, and the fact that they had this earthquake 560 miles off the shore of Charleston, South Carolina, and Vladimir Putin made sure that everybody knew that that was not an earthquake. It was a detonation at the bottom of the sea of a nuclear device. And it was because of the actions of the admiral and the two generals that, we did not suffer this horrific attack.
And it was the intention of the President of the United States to level such an attack against the population of the United States in line with the demands on Agenda 21. Keep in mind, too, that we see move after move after move that fit the frame of this Agenda 21, taking away property rights, taking away arms and armament, taking control of water rights. All of these things are spelled out in this Agenda 21. So the United Nations had basically prescribed how they would like to see the takeover of the world for a new world order, and that's the wording they use in the document, for this new world order, and America has started to line up directly with it. If he had been successful in wiping out the population over the 2 years, these things would just naturally fall into place. The taking away of our water rights, property rights, all of these things would basically be taken over by the government under the guise of emergency. Of course, the nation would be in dire emergency. But, once again, we see the moves of our president going in that direction.
Now, if you look at the totality of the Obama administration over the last 5.5 years, you look at the actions that he's taken, and you completely ignore any speeches that this man has given. Just evaluate the executive orders, the foreign policy, the domestic spending, all of the things that he's done, and then look at what he's done on the judicial side, his appointments, the Department of Justice, and the way that he has selectively enforced the law, the absolute intolerance that he has for any kind of possible discrimination against homosexuals or Muslims. If you grade him just on his actions and don't listen to any of his words, then I think that what you're looking at is a Mao, a Stalin, dare I say a Hitler, in the way that he has chosen to try and govern this nation. It has not been a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. It has been an effort to oppress the people, tax the people, control their lives. The health care situation right now in America is, we see this precipitous, dangerous cliff, and Barack Obama is eagerly pushing people off that cliff. The kids that are being lured into Obamacare today, Dr. Garrow, there's a commercial that we see on the Colorado stations of a young man who's talking about how easy it was for him to sign up with Obamacare, and he was surprised that he could get health care coverage for just $59 a month. $59 a month for how long? We have already seen the news releases that the premiums next year are going to skyrocket for these young people that signed up for that $59 a month premium, and they can't get out of the deal.
Well, the whole notion is that he will bankrupt individuals, he will bankrupt the country, and then, of course, martial law is very quickly going to proceed after that. Create the crisis, as Alinsky told him, and cloward pivot. That's the method. Create the crisis and then manage the crisis. The best crisis he ever created, of course, is Obamacare. If Obamacare had not been brought to play, of course, he was willing to wipe us out for the use of these EMPs. But this is an evil man. This is not a man who loves America. It is a man who hates America at its root and has decided, along with others who have colluded with him, namely Pelosi, namely Axelrod, namely Jarrett, and many other enablers who have decided that America, as they see it, is not worthy of continuance. And in all of it, in every situation, all of these people will be given special dispensation and given special position to be part of the ruling body, the elite, that will, well, they'll rule us.
Now, who does that leave as the oppressed minority in this country?
That's you and I.
That's right. It's the white Anglo-Saxon male Protestants and others. It is really something to see the vindictiveness of the Obama regime and the way that they have selected their enemies and chosen to try and persecute them through the IRS, persecute them through the health care law. This entire argument before the Supreme Court from Hobby Lobby over contraception and the abortion drug, and just the notion that the government can tell religious people that they must pay for something which religious beliefs tell them that they cannot do. And it is a highly controversial subject, and I really can't believe that Barack Obama put it in there, and I think he did it to pick this fight. I think he wants to have this fight because he wants to know who his enemies are. He wants to know who he can go after. And what better way than to open up the national dialogue? And I believe that every day on this program and many others like it, the government is listening. This is not paranoia talking, folks. I believe that they are making a list and checking it twice, and they're going to go out there and try and silence the voices on the right, intimidate companies that give us a chance to speak on the airwaves, and basically use the power of the government to suppress the free speech rights of at least 50% of this country.
Mm-hmm.
And we are seeing it. I mean, he's unmasking himself more and more every day. And you're beginning to see the pettiness of this president. And let's now talk, if we could, about the First Lady, lovingly referred to as FLOTUS. Let's talk about Michelle Obama. Tell us, Mr. Garrow, what's the deal with Michelle?
Well, we have just seen. We've kind of witnessed, but we haven't really because the press have not been allowed. And by the way, that has been a response to. Keep in mind that this was never part of what was supposed to happen. This has happened as a direct result of the fact that the original intent of her going over with the kiddies to China was to check out schools. There was going to be a really neat experience, followed by the dutiful press as they went and they discovered the wonderful things in education available to their kids in China. But what happened? The schools that they requested to go and visit, the best schools in China, turned them down. Now, let me ask you, who do you think owns the schools that these people and the advanced team asked to go and see?
I am going to guess that would be the Bethune Institute.
It is the Bethune Institute, and it just happens that Jim Bob is the foreign owner, along with my partners in China, of the best schools in China. So the poor folks, they hadn't been listening carefully enough or closely enough to realize they trapped themselves into a situation where instead of this being a great, big, wonderful public relations exercise and showcasing how wonderful international education was, and therefore wouldn't it be natural for their kids to go and be part of the international education experience, rub shoulders with Chinese, get to know wonderful cultures heretofore unknown, for them and open up the whole world of education everywhere.
Now,
well, guess what? We blasted that out of the atmosphere really quickly.
Now, we had microphones planted in the room where Michelle Obama was when she got the word that the Bethune Institute's schools had rejected her in China. And I can't play the recording for you for legal reasons, but I can translate it for you. When she learned what had transpired, that she'd been rejected by the schools there in China, I believe her words, her exact words were, "Oh no, you didn't." I believe that's what she said. I do. Now, there's one thing you need to know about Michelle. Day before yesterday, she's in China giving a speech. Did you hear about this one?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Listen to this paragraph, folks. I will paraphrase a little bit here. She goes, and today, she was talking about how there used to be laws that allowed discrimination against black people like her. And she specifically said black people like me. And then she goes, and today, just 50 years later, my husband and I are President and First Lady of the United States, and that is really the story of America. I'm sorry, folks. This is your First Lady.
Can't make it up.
Can you imagine Nancy Reagan saying something so narcissistic? Can you imagine even Rosalind Carter saying something like that? No, I can't imagine anybody else but Michelle Obama. And this really goes to this is the mentality of the Obamas.
Yeah.
I mean, everything is about them. It's all about them. America is no longer about liberty, justice for all. It's about Mr. and Mrs. Obama, the president and the first. And her wording was strange. I mean, to say it like that, to say me and my husband. Yes, she goes. 50 years later, my husband and I are president and first lady. It makes it sound as though Barack Obama and Michelle Obama are each half president and half first lady, and that explains a lot about Barack Obama's sexuality. It really does. It's like they're sharing duty.
I like your leap. Hey, but let's get down to the fact of how they have represented America while she has been there. This has been the greatest public relations disaster ever by anyone, whether a leader or a missus of a leader in the world. This has never happened before. You have the First Lady from day one, when she arrives at the hotel in day one, and they were going through the lobby. They couldn't keep up with her fast enough. They couldn't deal with her fast enough. She couldn't get through the greeters fast enough before she was yelling, and her mother was yelling at people in the lobby of the hotel. Now, let me set some stage here for you, because people are not aware of this, but you need to know. The hotel where they stayed have a very interesting program, because there's another hotel down in Shenzhen that has the same program. It's a sister hotel. They have Russian girls who serve as the hostesses, the greeters, when you come through the front door. These beautiful blonde, and they're blondes, beautiful blonde, intelligent beyond belief, who have master's degrees, by the way. And the one I'm going to zero in on happens to have gotten a master's degree from an American university, having already gotten a bachelor's degree in Russia, who speak, these two girls that are the greeters, they speak perfect Mandarin, perfect English, and, of course, Russian. They're there as they're being trained to run hotels in Russia for the elite in Russia. That's what they're there for. They start in these kinds of positions. They send them to China because China is now starting to have large numbers of people come to Russia. So I'm setting the stage for this. So what happened? At the very beginning of the tour, these people are barking commands at these wonderful people. And I've talked with these two girls at length because I stayed in that hotel. Now, let's go beyond this. That's day one. and it just got worse. You're on the concierge. You have your own concierge on the floor. They're paying $8,500 a night for the hotel room, which is about 3,500 square feet. It's like a house, a medium-sized house. And they have a servant who deals with the apartment as well. So they get this. But here's what I can't believe. When I go to China, one of the first things that I do is I find out what the room rate is going to be, and then I call the manager over and we talk, and we bargain for the price of the room. I had a room, a suite that started at $850. By the time I was finishing bargaining, do you know what I ended up paying for that suite? $85 a night.
Yeah.
10% of the cost. Now, at $8,500 a night, this bunch of idiots could have had a far better price. That's first of all. But you see, the problem with people on expense accounts is that they think, oh, it's someone else's money. I'm not going to bother. Well, this is your money. I want you to think about this. I want you to think about the money you have in your pocket right now. And if you took it out and you lit it on fire, that's the respect that was just shown by the First Lady to the money in your pocket, because that's where it came from. This exorbitant rate didn't need to be paid. In fact, could have been reduced to 10% of that, frankly.
Well,
and then there's all the rest.
The other thing that's ironic about that, Dr. Garrow, is this. You know, China watches the behavior of these people, and it has to make them feel very uneasy about the amount they have invested in America. And to see the devil-may-care attitude displayed by the Obama regime as far as no respect for the value of the currency, no respect for the taxpayers, no respect for the the idea that you would have some discipline in the way that you spend the taxpayers' money, because ultimately, you know, China is looking at America right now as an investment that they've made. And they look at the way that Barack Obama has governed, and they have to feel terrible about their chances of ever really getting a return on the investment they've made. Because right now, I mean, as you say, they're burning money. They are absolutely, I mean, they may as well be smoking cigars and lighting them with $100 bills. No respect for the currency, no respect for where the money came from, no thought to being frugal. It simply never entered their minds.
Well, I want to finish a little bit about the entrance way to the hotel, and I'm going to jump into what you were just describing in a second. But you know, two things I know: the young lady, the younger of those two blondes, the gorgeous blondes that would have greeted Obama, Mrs. Obama and her mother, and the rest of the entourage. And, of course, they would have known that the advance team that was in 2 weeks ahead of time, they would know about these girls. They would have checked them out very thoroughly, and they would have discovered something. The young girl, the youngest of the girls, her uncle in Russia is one of the leading members of the Politburo of Russia, the ruling group in the whole of the country of Russia. On day 3, Michelle Obama had that girl in tears. Now, you think about this. Do you think there aren't international ramifications for this kind of behavior?
You know what it is? It's that Barack and Michelle Obama have absolutely no RSPECT for anybody. I know you're thinking
right.
You're thinking I misspelled the word. No, I spelled it the way Barack Obama spelled it to Aretha Franklin. I mean,
and you know, normal folks, people who come in who are not nouveau riche. You know, I may have some money, but you know what I know how to do? I know how to treat people well and with respect. And what has been shown is total disrespect. And for the Chinese, total disrespect and loss of faith are things that are indicators of people that you cannot trust. And right now, that there may not be a media presence that's showing the rest of the world what has gone on. I want you to know something. Rocketing from corner to corner in China is the news of the disrespect and the loss of face that was forced on these people. All of the employees of that hotel have been disrespected, and their needs have been totally disregarded by these people who are basically trailer trash with lots of money, your money, that they're throwing away, and a weight that is not really their weight. It's the weight of America, the weight of the international community's respect for America that they've been throwing around as if they have the right to do that. They have just shown the worst. You've heard of the book, The Ugly American? This has been the worst of the ugly American. This woman has undone decades of wonderful presentation of who we are as Americans, as carefully respectful Christians, because that's the other thing that comes up, by the way, constantly. Our religion, that foretelling of who we are, has a lot to do with the fact that we are Christians in our demeanor and our belief. And what is the demeanor that they've seen from Michelle and her mother?
There's an old saying that says you can really tell the character of people by how they treat people that can't do anything for them, or people that can't that they can't use. The character of people is revealed by the way they treat people underneath them. It is about respect. It is about a basic, fundamental part of being a righteous, caring, and conscientious human being, an adult, a grown-up in this country. For many years, we were taught the virtue of honesty and respect and service. Service. It is about having a servant's heart. It is about, I think about Ronald Reagan. And one of the things that Ronald Reagan loved to do while he was president was to go to his ranch in California, and he would chop the wood. He would saddle the horse. He would take care of all those things. And the people around him were always in awe because he never treated them like hired help. He treated them like colleagues. And if you want to lift the people around you, that to me is a true indicator that you have a servant's heart, that you understand that human dignity is something that everybody should try and nurture in other people. And Michelle Obama has shown this anger and hostility, and she has truly treated people around her like slaves. It is truly and it reflects, I think, a vindictiveness that exists within the Obamas, because they feel like they are collecting on the debts owed to every slave that ever suffered in the South. Any slave that ever had to chop cotton, they feel like they're exacting revenge on their behalf. That seems to be the mentality of these people, with no consideration whatever for the dignity and respect and character and the feelings of these young people that have bent over backwards to be accommodating and kind and nice and caring and everything that you would expect from the best of the best in any country. And the Obamas have disrespected, and you're right, Dr. Garrow, it really is maddening when you look at this pattern of behavior that really reflects the worst of the worst.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and unfortunately, all of us have lost face in the Chinese tradition. We have lost face as a result of the treatment of just, wonderful people. I know these people. They bend over backwards. They are the most gracious, People who, when they ask you if there's anything they possibly can do to make your stay either a good stay or make it better, they mean it, and they will bend over backwards to do anything possible to make your stay a great success. And instead of being treated with the kinds of respect that they are due, they are, unfortunately, they have met the trailer trash from our White House. A real sad moment, Keeping in mind, too, this is all over China now. The treatment that has been afforded to just regular workers, this is an affront to the Chinese people. And I'm afraid all of us have suffered, all of our reputations have suffered. If you go onto my Facebook site, and I'm going to ask your readers to do this, go to Jim Garrow. It's a Facebook site for myself, and I want you to read some of the things I've written. I wrote an apology, a rather lengthy apology to China for what they've been forced to endure, and I make the best effort that I could in trying to put it in perspective. And I use an example in it that the Chinese will understand about bong men, who are basically servants at the front doors of carrying luggage. And I try to give a perspective about how they wouldn't know how to act if they were put in a position of managing the hotel, where they carry the luggage of the folks. But that's the best example I could think of Mrs. Obama in the performance of her role as the First Lady of the United States. She is as unworthy of the position and untrained and unable to be successful in it and represent the position any better than a bong man, a luggage handler, would have in running a hotel. It just wouldn't be a success at all. So I'd ask you, if you're listening now, just go to that site. There are a number of essays that I've written in the last couple of days that I'd appreciate if you had a look at, because I'm really trying to put things in perspective about the misuse of money, about elitism, about the treatment of people, and honor and Americanism, the exceptionalism of America, and the pride we should be having in our representatives, knowing that they would represent us well. And this last week has just been the vacation from hell, paid for by the money in your pocket.
Jim, it really does. You think about the Japanese for a moment, and how important. You think about how important honor is in Japan. In the culture there is, if you dishonor someone, it is. It's the most offensive thing you can do. And the idea that an American diplomat would have this type of behavior, this acting out, this truly, when you say trailer trash, I think, man, that's an insult to trailer trash. It really is. I mean, it's even worse than that. It is like the projects. It is like the worst ghetto behavior that you can imagine, and it's beneath the office of president, and it's beneath the long-standing tradition that we've had of graceful, gracious, and always elegant first ladies throughout our nation's history, with few exceptions. One of those exceptions is the favorite to win the nomination on the Democratic side in 2016. But aside from that, it's really almost. You'd think it's almost irreparable, the harm that is being done by the Obamas on the world stage. And I know we're running out of time, Dr. Garrow, but I wanted to give you an opportunity to really lay it out for people, because you did that on your Facebook posts, and I really encourage folks to go there, because it is. I mean, this has gotten so far out of hand that I think most Americans today, if you were to poll them correctly, would say that they're not proud of this president and this first lady that they're embarrassed by them. I don't know if you remember the Dixie Chicks when they were in Great Britain, and they said that they were embarrassed about George Bush being the president.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like, I think that everybody in the country now feels that way about Barack Obama. At least everybody in flyover country feels that way about Barack Obama. It is, America has really never been more divided when you talk about city versus the rural settings. You're talking about race division, division on gender issues, division on age issues. I mean, there's just so much division. And this president and first lady have shown absolutely no human grace in office. They've been a disgrace.
They have, and that's I believe that's the right word. They are a disgrace. They embarrass us on the international stage. They lessen America everywhere they go. They take our reputation with them, and as a result, they damage that reputation. And that is not fair to the American people, who, for the most part, are wonderful. And anyone, whether you're Chinese or you're Russian, if you had a chance to sit down at the table with any American family, they would walk away with a great deal of respect, and you know what? Love.
Yes, that's right. And you remember how endearing it was, Ronald Reagan, when he was president of the United States, after he got shot. The country really bonded with him because his character shone through in those hours after he was shot, joking with the doctors and I hope you're all Republicans and things like that. And then after the fact, he showed a grace in office that really, I think, instilled confidence in the American people. And people don't realize how fragile the psyche of the American people is right now. And when Barack Obama and John Kerry and Michelle Obama and Joe Biden and these people, when they open their mouths and say things on the world stage that are just so atrocious, what it does is it damages the psyche of the people of this country, who have, I think, less and less confidence on a daily basis in is the economy going to get better? I think most Americans don't think so. And that is tragic. I mean, what they've done is they have tried to douse the flame of the American dream. And, that is, I can't think of anything more damning for our kids than to take away their opportunity to be optimistic about the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, amen, amen. And, I know we're at the end of this broadcast, but I want to encourage everybody, get involved with your local Tea Party. You'll discover people of like mind whose patriotism is unquestionable, actually, and whose love of God and country. And when I say God, I mean the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Let's be really specific about what God we're talking about. That's the God of the Founding Fathers. And that's the God of the majority of America today. And thank goodness it is. But join your Tea Party, get involved, and get rid of this scum of the earth that we have.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Jim, thank you for joining us today. I know that you are a busy guy, and I appreciate, first of all, the exclusive. We're going to be rebroadcasting this program. It's over the weekend. We're going to run a special, and the whole thing regarding the technology that was on board the plane. We will emphasize that and tell all your friends to listen as well, because the nationwide exclusive here on the J.J. McCartney Show, I don't know what I ever did to deserve you, Dr. Garrow, but I am thankful that you made time for us today. God bless you, and let's keep up the fight, and I'm sure we'll talk again in a week or two.
Amen, and God bless you too. And God bless America.
Absolutely. All right, that's Jim Garrow. Thank you very much, sir. We are going to take a break. We will come back with more. We are going to do a bit of overtime today, as we reflect on the Alaska earthquake, and we talk about a few more things before we wrap it up today on the J.J. McCartney Show. Stay close.